spine-chilling rides. For terrifying true tales of unexplained car journeys with a sinister doctor, Rebecca gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white in the dim light. Another late shift at the diner, another night spent hustling for tips. Beside her, Jake fidgeted in his seat, the shadows of the road stretching behind them like dark, grasping fingers. How was she going to make ends meet this week? The weight of their struggles crashed against her chest like a wave. They were leaving the familiarity of their suburb behind, coasted onto a desolate rural road that seemed to swallow them whole. But something wasn't right. A black car had fallen in behind them, steady as a heartbeat. At first, Rebecca dismissed it. Just another late-night driver, she thought. But Jake's wide eyes caught the movement in the rearview mirror. "Mom, look." His voice trembled with an edge of fear. There it was, the driver, a man in a white coat, eyes bulging wide, locked on them with an unnerving intensity. A chill snaked down Rebecca's spine. With every quick glance back, he seemed to vanish and reappear, taunting them. The tension thickened in the air, wrapping around them like a cloud of dread. The comforting hum of tech fell silent, and with it, their cell signals slipped away, leaving them surrounded by silence and isolation. There were no lights from houses, no flickering screens, just the dark woods pressing in closer. Anxiety wrapped itself around Rebecca's throat. She glanced at Jake, his face pale and trembling. "Just a little bit longer. Just a road. We'll be home." Then Jake's voice pierced through her thoughts, shaky and filled with echoes of fear. "Mom, remember the stories? About the twisted doctors?" His words turned her blood cold. Yes, the unsettling urban legends that rattled through the backyards during summer nights. Panic surged through her, and she fumbled for the phone. Dialing felt futile. Her voice echoed, swallowed by the eerie void. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Heart racing, she felt the atmosphere shift. Shadows loomed in the headlights. Every tick of the clock drummed with the weight of anxiety. Deep down, she feared what was lurking behind "no help comes in isolation." The sickening feeling that something sinister stalked them intensified. Sudden headlights flared brighter behind them. The sinister black car surged forward, chasing them down the dim road, forcing Rebecca to slam her foot down. The engine roared in protest as they swerved through the twisted paths of trees. The air crackled with terror, the reality of their nightmares creeping closer and closer. And then they were trapped. A dead end loomed before them, the menacing black car stalking ever closer, the driver leaning forward, that chilling grin warping his features. The wheels crunching on gravel sounded like hearts pounding in the dark. Jake's wide eyes mirrored her own terror. The truth sank in. This guy was more familiar than he should be, tied to their lives in achingly unseen ways. As the grip of darkness threatened to close around them, the shadows whispered their secrets, leaving them straddling the line of safety and dread. The black car came to a sudden halt behind them, blocking any possibility of retreat. The engine hummed ominously, as if the vehicle itself was breathing, waiting. Rebecca's heart raced faster as she exchanged panicked glances with Jake, who was frozen, wide-eyed, his small hands clutching his knees. "Mom, what do we do?" he squeaked, his voice breaking with each word. "Stay calm, Jake," she whispered, though her heart was pounding like a drum. She fought to keep her voice steady. "We'll figure something out." The driver stepped out of the car. He towered over them, a hulking figure in the dim light. The white coat flapped against the still night air, the collar turned up against whatever chill lingered. His face was shielded from direct view, but Rebecca could feel his eyes boring into her like daggers. "Mom, he's coming." Jake whimpered. A sound pierced the night, metal scraping against metal. The driver leaned closer to their car. Rebecca's breath caught as she grasped the handle, her mind racing. Should she unlock the door? There was nowhere to run. No one to call for help. She couldn't leave Jake alone in the car. "What do you want?" Rebecca shouted, her voice trembling despite all attempts at bravery. He stopped, the grin widening grotesquely. "I'm here to help, of course." His words dripped with feigned sincerity. "Just a simple examination, you could say, for health purposes." The twisted humor curling around his lips sent ice coursing through her veins. "No, get away from us," Jake cried, his small voice tinged with pure terror. The man shifted, a glimmer of something promise? Threat? In his eyes. "It's not safe out here at night. You don't want to be here when things get messy. Come with me. You'll feel better. Don't you touch that door. I swear," Rebecca yelled, gripping the steering wheel with all her strength. But he wasn't deterred. Instead, he leaned over, peering through the windshield, his breath fogging the glass. She caught a glimpse of his twisted features. His smile transformed into something predatory. The world outside was dark, but here, the horror felt palpable. An electric current in the air sparking with every heartbeat. "Why are you afraid?" he taunted softly. "I'm a doctor. Doctors help." "Liar," Jake screamed, letting fear drive his voice. With every passing second, the dread intensified. Her instincts screamed at her to flee. In one split second, she made her decision. "Hold on tight, Jake." She shifted the car into reverse, tires spinning wildly, grappling for traction against the gravel. Without a backward glance, she slammed the accelerator and jolted backward. The man leaped out of the path just in time, his expression a mix of surprise and rage. The road ahead was dark, ominous, yet her only chance of escape. She veered away from the unsettling figure, any notion of safety long gone, adrenaline surging through her as the headlights flickered against the trees. The heart-stopping realization settled in the panic was just beginning, with her vision focused straight ahead. Rebecca barely registered the shadowy figures moving at the edge of her sights, appearing and disappearing among the trees. A glimmer of concern rolled through her mind. Were they allies? Or were they another threat hiding in the safety of darkness? And as they raced away, the road snaking ahead, Jake's voice quivered, breaking the silence. "Mom, what if he finds us again?" The memories of rattling stories surged back, legends of twisted doctors lurking in the darkness, far more than just tales. And the truth washed over her like cold water. Something sinister followed them into the night, hunting them. And soon, they would learn the depths of the darkness that loomed behind them. The fear of returning home faded, replaced by the urgency of survival. Would they outrun everything that chased them? The grip of dread tightened around her throat as she sped ahead, desperate to escape whatever was waiting in the shadows. A thought pierced through her. What did he mean by messy? And was there more than one? As the tires screeched against the road, the cold wind carried whispers of dread, wrapping around them as they disappeared into the night. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the twisted branches, reaching toward them like skeletal hands desperate for a grasp. The trees blurred by as Rebecca pressed the accelerator further, her heart racing with every beat. The words of the driver echoed in her mind. A sickening chant. "I'm here to help, Mom. Please go faster." Jake's plea broke through her thoughts, panic mingling with urgency in his tiny voice. "I'm trying, baby. I swear. Just hold on." There was an unsettling quiet, an eerie calm that hung in the air after their escape. But as Rebecca's anxiety grew, that calm felt even more ominous than the chaos they had just fled. Her mind raced through options, desperately searching for a safe place to go, a location that could promise even a sliver of safety. The thought of heading home felt absurd. The road twisted wildly, every curve felt like a trap. She gripped the wheel, knuckles white. The trees began to thin, revealing patches of starlit sky. She finally spotted a distant light, a flickering glow ahead. Rebecca's heart leapt. "Look, Jake, it's a diner. We can stop there. Is it safe?" Anxiety laced his words, his hands gripping his knees, just as he had before. "I don't know," she admitted, swallowing hard. But we can't just keep driving. We need help. Moments later, the diner came into view, small, squat, and bathed in neon light. It seemed inviting, despite the shadows that flitted around the periphery. Slowing to a stop, she glanced around. "Stay close, Jake." He nodded firmly, but she could see the fear dancing in his eyes. They stepped out into the night, the air heavy with an industrial scent and her own rising dread. Inside, the diner was nearly empty. Only a couple of patrons lingered at the counter, and behind it stood a disheveled woman with dark circles under her eyes. It felt like a scene from a horror film, a place where nightmares didn't just visit, they thrived. "Hi there," Rebecca said, trying to force a smile. "We need help." The woman raised an eyebrow but didn't respond, merely glancing back at the other customers, two men who seemed too engrossed in their meal to pay her any mind. Rebecca caught a glimpse of their faces, worn and shadowed, and her stomach twisted. Something was off. "Water?" the waitress finally offered, her voice rough, as if it hadn't been used in days. "Please," Rebecca whispered, stilling her racing thoughts. While waiting for the water, she felt the oppressive weight of stares. The men's eyes were on her, calculating, assessing. One leaned closer, whispering something to the other, a chilling grin spreading across his face that held no friendliness, only malice. A sudden clang made Rebecca jump. A metal object fell, rolling to her feet. She looked down, an old scalpel, stained. Cold dread seeped into her bones. "Mom, can we leave now?" Jake tugged at her sleeve. His fear was palpable, amplifying her own. She nodded, but the moment she turned her gaze to the entrance, the world outside warped. The black car, the driver now lurking in the shadows, leaned against the vehicle, a sick smile painted on his grotesque face. "Going somewhere?" he called, his voice dripping with sickening sweetness. Rebecca felt the weight of the absolute terror close in around her, thick and suffocating. The diner's door was a fragile barrier against whatever horrors awaited. She backed away slowly, but the waitress spoke suddenly, her tone sharp and urgent. "Don't leave until you've tasted the special." "What?" Rebecca barely whispered, completely unprepared for what she might hear. But then the lights flickered overhead, and the waitress grinned, teeth glinting in the dim light like a predator, revealing just how close they were to the terror she desperately tried to escape. And then silence fell, and every eye in the diner turned toward her, frozen in that awful moment of sheer dread. The suffocating grip of fear tightened around her throat as Rebecca realized they were no longer the ones running. What kind of help awaited them in this endless nightmare? Just then, Jake screamed, pointing frantically at the window, and Rebecca's heart stopped. Outside, a new shadow loomed, drifting toward them with unnatural speed. Was she now caught in another trap? The air in the diner felt impossibly thick, as if time itself had slowed to a crawl. Eyes that hadn't blinked turned toward Rebecca, and she could almost feel the weight of their curiosity pressing against her skin. The waitress leaned over the counter, her smile widening unnaturally, revealing more than just teeth. There was something predatory in her expression, a flicker of excitement that sent chills racing down Rebecca's spine. "Mom, I don't like this," Jake whimpered, his voice trembling. Rebecca gripped his hand, her stomach twisted in knots. She wanted to leave. No, she needed to leave. Before she could move, the door swung wide open with a creak that echoed through the diner, jolting Rebecca from her thoughts. The figure outside stepped into the dim light, revealing a tall man dressed in a long coat that swept the ground, a shadow flickering dangerously between their world and something darker. The air had shifted, electrified with a tension that felt alive. Now, the man called, his voice loud against the backdrop of silence. "I hate to interrupt, but looks like you're the guest of honor tonight." Rebecca's heart pounded louder than the clamor of her racing thoughts. Why was he here? She searched for an exit, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But where could they go? The black car outside was a reminder that something was out to get them. "Please," she blurted, the words spilling out of her trembling lips in desperation. "We just want to leave." "We didn't mean to intrude." Who said anything about intrusion? The man replied smoothly, An unsettling smile etched across his face. He approached the counter as if he belonged there. The two men at the counter still stared, their expressions not shifting, their bodies unyielding, like statues come to life. The waitress interjected, her voice low and conspiratorial, the special, "Dear, it's not just food." She leaned closer to Rebecca, her breath a putrid mix of garlic and something rotten. "It's an experience. You want to miss out." Rebecca felt nausea roll through her. "We're not hungry," she managed to squeak out. But as her words left her mouth, the lights overhead flickered again, plunging parts of the diner into a temporary darkness. A collective gasp arose from the patrons, and when the lights returned, the men had moved. They were closer now, no longer seated, their eyes glinting with an unsettling fervor. "Stay back," she shouted, yanking Jake closer to her side. But her howl only seemed to amuse them. They stepped forward, each movement unnaturally fluid, closing the distance between themselves and the troubled mother and son. Suddenly one of the men lunged, snatching the scalpel from the floor, his eyes wild. "A little taste of what happens if you don't try our special." Rebecca's survival instincts flared. "Jake!" she hissed. "Run!" She turned and bolted for the door, but it slammed shut before her fingers could touch the handle. The room erupted in chaos, the two men howling with laughter while the tall man extended his arm, the darkness around him coiling like smoke. "Not so fast." His voice reverberated, thick with triumph. Jake screamed again, and in that moment, the world blurred and twisted. Flickering lights cast grotesque shadows on the walls, and the diner became a warped carousel of flesh and bone, writhing with malicious glee as she gathered the courage to face the impossibility. The waitress's voice sliced through the mayhem. "You think you've seen horror? Oh, you've only scratched the surface." With adrenaline surging, Rebecca turned her gaze to the window, desperate for escape, but the driver now stood outside, grinning broadly, as though he anticipated something dreadful. How could she save Jake? Just before the lights flickered again, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of the road outside, a horrifying thought struck her. What if this was part of the plan all along? What sinister revelations awaited her just beyond the glass? The shadows seemed to push in tighter as she faced the impending threat, and in that instant, the phone on the wall began to ring. Who would be calling at a time like this? What more had they to say? The phone rang with a desperate urgency, slicing through the din like a blade. The sound sent a jolt through Rebecca. She felt tethered to the chaos around her, yet the idea of answering that ringing phone tugged at her curiosity, igniting a flicker of hope. But hope was a fragile thing, easily snuffed out in this place. "Mom!" Jake's voice broke through her reverie, filled with panic. The men were closing in now, their smiles stretching wider, revealing teeth that looked far too sharp. "Hold on, Jake." Rebecca wasn't sure if she was speaking to him or herself. Every ounce of reason told her to ignore the call, yet her feet felt glued to the ground. The bell chimed again, more insistent this time. "Answer it," screamed the waitress, her tone abruptly shifting from conspiratorial to piercing. "It's for you." Rebecca swallowed hard. What message awaited her? Was it friend or foe on the other end of that line? The tall man's figure loomed closer, a dark silhouette against the flickering lights. Behind her, something shifted. "Mom!" Jake cried again, fear pressing on his voice like an iron weight. With trembling fingers, Rebecca drifted toward the phone, the stillness around her amplifying the clamoring heartbeat in her ears. She reached for the receiver, steeling herself in defiance of the malevolence radiating from the patrons. The phone crackled, and a raspy voice seeped through, thick with dread. "You need to listen carefully." It was a woman, sounding distant yet urgent. "Get out. They're not what you think they are." Rebecca choked back her breath. Who are you?" But the line went dead. The realization sent a wave of terror crashing over her. She had a choice. Stay and confront the gathering storm or flee into the unknown. But which was more terrifying? She turned back toward Jake. His eyes darted around the diner, seeking an answer in the abyss of frantic faces. Then, in unison, the men began to chant a low, guttural sound that filled the diner like an invisible fog. A dark tide rose in her chest, a visceral instinct screaming at her to act. "Jake, we have to go now," she shouted, her voice cutting through the growing frenzy. Before they could make a move, she felt a hand grip her shoulder, icy fingers that froze her in place. It was the waitress, her face twisted in a smile that now dripped with malice. "Where do you think you're going?" Dread pooled in Rebecca's stomach, a heavy weight that threatened to crush her resolve. The world around them warped again. The lights buzzed, flickering rapidly. Shadows morphed, distorting the diner's familiar gluttony into a nightmarish tableau. Then more than just laughter erupted, it morphed into a cacophony of whispers, voices curling around her like serpent's fangs, promising horror, urging her to surrender. "Choose wisely," the tall man's voice came, smooth and oily, slithering deeper inside her mind. "Stay and witness what comes next, or run and become part of the experience." Each word hung in the air, pregnant with sinister intention. "Don't listen to them," the woman's voice flared in Rebecca's memory. But as she fought to shake the grasping shadows away, she noticed movement by the exit. The driver was still there, just outside, but now joined by a figure in a white coat. A desperate clarity flashed through Rebecca's thoughts. They were waiting for something, and she could feel it too. The weight of inevitability pressing down as dread coursed through her veins. "Jake!" she screamed, her urgency a lifeline as she turned to yank him away from the encroaching figures. But before she could make a move, the waitress leaned in close, her breath hot on Rebecca's ear. "You'll never escape, not unless you know the truth." That chilling proposal echoed in her mind. What truth could be worse than this very moment? Who could she trust in this web of deceit and terror? And just like that, all the laughter fell silent, the atmosphere crackling with a strained anticipation. The phone lying on the counter, silenced yet still brimming with potential, seemed to mock her. What truth was hiding in the layers of horror? Would the answers be a beacon of hope or total devastation? As the shadows gathered, the truth felt inexorably close, just outside their reach, and the horror of it all hung, waiting, poised to strike. Rebecca's heart thundered in her chest as the waitress's breath lingered on her skin. Fear clawed at her throat, tightening with every passing moment. She could see the menaced eyes glinting in the darkness, their chant growing louder, syncopated like the ticking of a grim clock counting down to something disastrous. "Mom, please!" Jake was trembling now, his small face pale, eyes wide and pleading. He tugged at her arm, desperate to break free from the grip of impending doom that surrounded them. But Rebecca felt paralyzed by dread, glued to the spot like a helpless insect caught in a web. "Let us move." She shook herself free, her resolve igniting again as the whispers crescendoed, filling her with dark predictions that made the hair on her arms stand up. The door, just a few paces away, glimmered like a distant star. Yet she sensed its impossibility, a barrier woven from the fabric of fear that seemed to thrum in the air. With a sudden burst of courage, she turned to Jake. "We're going out that door." Her voice was sharp, slicing through the haze of terror. Most of the diner's patrons had turned their sights on them, their smiles now replaced by sinister grins revealing unnaturally white teeth. "No," the waitress screeched, her voice a wild shriek that cut like glass. Her hands shot out, fingers grasping, trying to block their escape. With instinct kicking in, Rebecca swerved. She grabbed Jake's wrist tightly, hauling him toward the exit, her mind racing with a single thought. If they could just reach the threshold, they might escape this nightmare. Suddenly, the door swung open, revealing the driver standing on the other side, the white-coated figure now fully visible. His eyes were devoid of warmth, a chilling stare that promised nothing but malevolence. "Come back," he urged, extending his hand but holding a knife now, its blade catching the scant light. "It's not safe out there." The chant escalated, rising to a deafening pitch that reverberated in her skull. "Run, Jake," she shouted, adrenaline propelling her forward. They barreled through the door, bursting into the night. The cool air hit them like a slap, refreshing yet laced with the scent of impending rain. But as they stepped outside, the world warped. The diner vanished into mist behind them as if it had never existed. They were trapped in a fog, no clear path ahead. "Mom?" Jake's voice trembled, quaking with disbelief. He looked back. What just happened? A shadow loomed in the mist. The men had followed them, their figures twisting in the vapor like demonic wraiths. Behind them, the waitress's laugh echoed, haunting and discordant, trailing like a nightmare begging to be remembered. Rebecca's pulse raced. "We need to find a place to hide." It felt stupid to think they'd find safety anywhere. Alone with only the hovering darkness pressing in around them, she felt a heaviness spread in her chest. Suddenly, a flicker of headlights cut through the fog, illuminating the outline of another vehicle. Panic seized her as she caught a glimpse of the driver's face, and it was a face she recognized all too well. It looked like the driver from before, but this time his features twisted, grotesque and familiar in a way that sent shivers down her spine. "Jake, run!" she screamed, but something compelled her feet to the ground. The car door swung open, and the figure leaned out, beckoning her closer. A promise of safety or her deepest fear. "Mom, not that way." Jake was pulling her back, but the shadows around them stirred, echoing the waitress's words. "You'll never escape." Rebecca's breath quickened as the weight of a new terror settled in her gut. The truth that would free them or ensnare them forever lay ahead. "Do we trust him?" she muttered, torn between hope and dread. Because deep inside, she knew there was one thing worse than the danger lurking behind. The unknown of what waited inside that car. With shadows thickening around them, one question pierced the suffocating darkness. Were they closer to salvation or closer to a nightmare reborn? "Jake!" Rebecca shouted, pulling her son back against her. The headlights illuminated their frightened faces, casting eerie shadows that danced along the fog. "Mom, let us just run." Jake whimpered, his hand slipping from hers as he trembled. But that ghastly driver with that twisted grin smeared across his face seemed almost inviting, a sinister magnet drawing her deeper into uncertainty. "Come on," he waved, that knife still glimmering like a surreal beacon of danger. "It's all right now. Just trust me." The air hummed with a pulse of terror. She felt the heaviness of the fog tightening around them, the whispers morphing into a cacophony of fear-laden words, chanting threats in a language she couldn't grasp. Each repetition, "You'll never escape," stabbed at her resolve. "Hold on, don't look at him." She clutched Jake's wrist, pulling him back as the shadows behind them stirred with an insatiable hunger. The men's forms flickered in and out of visibility, faces contorted with malevolence. "This isn't real," Jake insisted as their surroundings blurred, a soft haze swallowing the world whole. He was struggling against her grip now, eyes wide with confusion and panic. "We have to go." "Shoo." She pressed a finger to her lips, glancing at the car. "If we get in, we might, He yanked away from her. "No, please. No." His breath came in strangled gasps as he stumbled backward, eyes darting into the swirling abyss behind them. But Rebecca felt her resolve fracture, torn between the awful urge to flee and the compulsion to trust this wretched figure. She met his gaze, seeking something, an explanation or insight. The driver's haunting grin widened as he beckoned again, the shadows that enveloped them surging closer, their breath hot and rancid on her skin. Closer, he tilted his head as if hypnotized by their fear. "You won't escape it unless you come in." Jake's whimper broke through the dim air. "Mom, please don't do it." The shadows shifted again. They were writhing against one another as if alive, whispering, churning with the promise of despair. "You can't fight what you can't see," with a primal urge surging through her. Rebecca leaped towards the car. She couldn't stop herself, couldn't ignore the voice that clawed at her mind. Just a step away from freedom or doom. "Mom! Mom!" Jake screamed, but their distance grew. A sudden rush of cold air stung her face when she reached for the door. She hesitated as she pulled the handle, realizing an ill-fated truth. Was she ready to trade one darkness for another? The door swung open with a hiss, revealing a back seat shrouded in shadows so thick it swallowed the light. An oppressive presence washed over her. It felt alive, swirling with whispers that promised salvation, urging her to step inside. "Go back," Jake cried, wild desperation in his voice, but something felt irresistible in that moment. The darkness beckoned, wrapping around her, and the whispers lured her deeper into submission. And then, like a clap of thunder, reality fractured. She was pulled into the car, lowering herself into blackness, the fog swirling around her like a consuming fog. Jake's cries faded as the door slammed shut. The figure leaned closer, eyes shining cold and hollow, merging into a silhouette of the things she had feared the most. "You're safe now," he purred. Too sweet and terrible. And just like that, Rebecca's heart dropped. Something clutched at her throat, a realization that flared like fire in her veins. What had she done? Jake, her only hope, was lost to the mist. Her choice had awakened a deeper horror, something vile waiting on the other side of the threshold. As the shadows pressed against the windows, swallowing them whole, the words echoed in her mind, "You'll never escape," a chilling reminder of what awaited them inside. Rebecca's pulse quickened as she looked up, the figure's grin widening ominously in the dark. "Are you ready to understand?" The fog outside thickened, muffling the world, and she was about to discover the real terror of that nightmarish ride. What really lay ahead in that dark abyss? Or worse, what if the danger within the car was far worse than whatever lurked outside? The moment the door slammed shut, Rebecca felt the darkness close in on her, slick and suffocating, like being submerged in black water. The air was thick with something both stale and sweet, a cloying mixture that churned her stomach. Her heart raced as dread seeped into her bones, reminding her with each rapid thump of Jake's pleas echoing outside. "What have I done?" she whispered, fighting the urge to scream. The figure beside her exuded an eerie calm, his presence a mix of chilling allure and overwhelming dread. He leaned back against the seat, the knife now resting casually on his lap, glistening maliciously under the dim light filtering through the foggy windows. "Don't be frightened," he crooned, in a voice that slithered under her skin. "You are safe with me." Safe. The word felt like a sinister joke. The shadows inside the car twisted like tendrils, creeping along the seats and reaching for her, whispering dark promises of knowledge and power if she would just abandon her fear. They swirled around her arms, brushing against her skin with a chill that sent shivers down her spine. She could almost hear them, wrapping around her mind like vines. "You have to let go, embrace the truth." "Truth?" She spat back, anger cutting through the haze. "What truth? What did I walk into?" Her voice sounded small, lost. The driver tilted his head, the grin revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too predatory. "The truth that your world is built on lies, on shadows that lurk and consume." Rebecca felt hot breath on her neck, the whispers amplifying, saturating her mind. Her thoughts twisted, grappling with a gnawing anxiety. Jake was outside, alone, and she was trapped. The darkness coiled tighter around her, squeezing her lungs. Every instinct screamed to get out. Suddenly, the car jerked, tires skidding on the slick road. She jolted against the seat, heart pounding in a chaotic rhythm. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded, desperate to wrest control of the situation. "Where you need to be," he replied softly, almost tenderly, as the road blurred outside, thickening with fog. The landscape morphed into abstract shapes, shadows melding into one another, filled with premonitions of terror. "Let me show you the other side." As he spoke, the air inside the car chilled further, freezing her breath into silvery clouds. She gripped the edge of her seat, knuckles white as dread pooled in her belly. A vision flashed in her mind, Jake being swallowed whole by the mist, his screams fading into silence. "No, I can't lose him. Jake!" she screamed, but the words tumbled into the void, swallowed by the suffocating darkness. "His fate is not yours to decide," the driver replied, his eyes glimmering with an otherworldly fire. "But knowledge comes at a price." A flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow darting past the windows. It froze her in place, gut-wrenching fear shooting through her. Something lurked in the fog, something that wanted inside, that hungered for her despair. She could sense it. "What's outside?" she whispered, feeling a crackle of fear electrify the air, the tension palpable as the unknown gnawed at her sanity. The beginning of understanding and the end of fear, the driver said, his voice resonating like a grave mark. Rebecca felt the grip of despair twist her heart as the car slipped deeper into the fog. The darkness beyond the glass grew thick, a palpable weight pressing in, suffocating her sanity, leaving only the eerie laughter of shadows as they danced along the walls of the car. Desperation surged through her. She needed to escape before time ran out. But the driver's grin grew sharper, a menacing promise of the horrors yet to come. What lay ahead as they traversed this dark path? Would she find Jake, or would she succumb to the whispers and shadows beckoning her to turn away from the light forever? The car lurched again, the tires skimming across something wet on the road, shifting Rebecca's thoughts from Jake to what lay outside. Her body tightened, instincts screaming at her to flee, but doing so could invite whatever prowled the fog. Each muffled thump against the chassis echoed like a hammer against her heartbeat. "Please," she pleaded, her voice trembling as she turned to the driver. "I need to find Jake. The truth about him may shock you," he said casually, as if they were discussing the weather. He leaned closer, his breath chilling her more than the cold air already swirling around them. "What does that mean?" Rebecca was desperate, clenching her jaw to keep from crying. "Just drive me back. I want to go home." "Home?" His laughter cut through the stillness, shattering her hope like glass. "Home is an illusion, Rebecca. You are deeper in the woods than you realize." With each word, he wove a tapestry of dread around her, spinning tales of despair as the car diverted onto an unmarked road. The trees loomed closer, skeletal limbs stretching into the night, clawing at the air. She turned back to the window, and for a moment, she thought she saw Jake, wavering just beyond the glass, his face pale and distorted, mouth open in a silent scream. "Jake!" she cried, reaching out, but he dissolved into the mist, leaving only shadows dancing where he'd been. "Don't be naive. He is lost," the driver said, the satisfied smirk curling his lips. "But you can find him, if you're willing to listen." The air turned electric, crackling like a storm brewing. "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously, both drawn and repelled by the idea of finding Jake. "What do I have to do?" "Drop your fears," he murmured, his eyes glinting in the darkness. "Embrace the shadows. Become one with them and you shall see." The car slowed to a crawl, the engine purring ominously. Rebecca felt the shadows reaching for her again, their whispers rising to a crescendo. Each promise held a dark allure, a thrilling whisper of knowledge and power that sent chills coursing down her spine. "See with open eyes, Rebecca." Suddenly, the car's headlights illuminated a clearing. Her heart stopped in her chest. Before them stood a stone altar, slick with fresh blackened stains glistening like oil. Surrounding it were figures draped in tattered gray, their features obscured but their presence heavy with intent. They raised their arms, beckoning her forward. "No!" Rebecca screamed, panic clawing inside her. The door handle felt slick with sweat as she yanked at it, but it wouldn't budge. "Let me out. I don't want this." "Not yet," the driver said, smiling wider as the shadows danced closer. "Once you understand your desires, only then will you be free." "Desires?" she shouted, refusing to be pulled into the dark. "What do you know about my desires?" His grin faded, replaced by a solemn look. "Only that they can lead you to salvation or to ruin." He gestured outside, where the figures twisted under the moonlight, their intent shrouded in the darkness. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the woods. The sound was familiar Jake. It sliced through her terror, rooting her to her seat. "Do you hear it?" "Such despair," the driver said softly. "Would you leave him to suffer alone? Or would you discover what true sacrifice means?" Panic surged within her, battling against the compulsion to know, to understand. She trembled, trapped between two worlds, the fog and the altar calling to her, the dark whisper urging her to discard her fears and plunge into the depths of what lay beyond. "Rebecca," the driver said dangerously low, "make your choice outside." Another scream rang out. The figures churned in response, yearning, hungry. Would she yield to the darkness to save the one she loved, or turn away from the promise of an unspeakable truth that could consume her entirely? Rebecca's heart raced, pounding like a drum inside her chest. Every scream echoed through the fog, calling her back to Jake, while dread tugged at her soul, reminding her of the shadows lurking in the dark. The driver's presence felt oppressive, a weight in the air that threatened to crush her hope. "Please," she murmured, but the words felt weak against the tide of horror rolling around her. She had to escape this twisted realm, this parking lot of horrors where no salvation lingered. The driver leaned closer, his face a mask of ominous expectation. "What will it be, Rebecca? Knowledge or ignorance? Love or power? I want to save Jake." The words ripped from her throat, filled with urgency. It was all that mattered. She could feel her resolve hardening like steel. "Ah, true love, how sweet," he taunted, his gaze piercing through the fog. "Love can be a potent tool or a devastating weakness. You see, there are costs to every choice." She gripped the edge of her seat, summoning courage. "What do I have to do?" The question slipped out, hesitant, laced with the very fear she sought to vanquish. "Let go of your fear. Embrace the darkness within you. Only then can you find what you seek, your son." The air crackled, swirling with his words, promising secrets wrapped in a seductive darkness. With trembling hands, Rebecca turned to the shadowy figures outside, the grotesque outline of the altar stark against the moonlight. "I want to let you use me." "Use you? No, sweet Rebecca. Your desires guide you, as desires always do. Unveil them, and perhaps Jake will not be lost to the shadows." The night around her thickened, suffocating. She could feel the power of the shadows tugging at her. The weight of their allure pressed heavily, enticing her to trust the unknown. In that moment, Jake's voice echoed in her mind, a reminder of innocence in the chaos. "I'll find you, Jake," she shouted, decisively breaking the grip of fear. "No matter the cost." Suddenly, the windows flared with light, illuminating the fog and the altar beyond. It flickered like an electric current, illuminating a small figure running through the darkness. "Mom! Mom!" Jake's cries broke through her resolve like the crack of a whip. The driver's expression morphed from amusement to rage, his kindness stripped away to reveal a malevolence beneath. "You think you can just run? The shadows don't yield easily." "No," she roared, defiance igniting. "Jake needs me." As if summoned by a force unyielding, her fingers flicked around the handle, pulling with all her might. The door burst open, revealing the chaotic darkness beyond. But then something extraordinary happened. Light emanated from within her. It seeped through the fog, illuminating a path filled with shadows that recoiled. "Step into the light, Mom!" Jake shouted, his tiny voice threaded with desperation. His figure appeared just beyond, a mix of fear and hope shining in his unyielding gaze. Rebecca sprang from the car, heart racing with determination, her arms wrapping around him tighter than ever. "I'm here, Jake." Terror and determination warred within her as she stepped forward. The shadows howled in protest, but she pushed through, channeling every ounce of love she felt for her son, wielding it like a sword against the darkness. The driver screamed, his twisted grin falling apart as the light engulfed him. "You cannot escape. This is but the beginning." But Rebecca felt emboldened, taking Jake's hand as they dashed away from the clutches of evil. "Run," she urged, adrenaline rushing through her veins, propelling them beyond the altar and into the wild, untamed woods. The shadows pursued them, wailing with fury, but Rebecca kept her gaze steady on the fading light ahead. Every step felt like a rebuff against despair, and as the sun began to creep over the horizon, the whispers lost their strength. The night shattered with dawn's light. The sinister figures retreated, fading back into the depths from which they had come. Panting and leaving behind the remnants of horror, Rebecca and Jake forged ahead, hand in hand, knowing they had conquered the darkness this time. Finally reaching the road, Rebecca turned to face her son as the warmth of the morning sun enveloped them. "Mom, I was so scared," Jake whimpered, tears sparkling in his eyes. "Me too," "Baby," she whispered, wiping his cheeks clean. "But we did it. We made it." As they walked towards their second chance, their hearts raced with determination. They promised never to forget what they had overcome together. And in the stillness of the moment, Rebecca understood. Love was the truest light that could banish all shadows, even in the darkest of times. This was the end of that horrifying journey, a farewell to shadows, but also a profound beginning, a promise of hope waiting to bloom anew as they stepped into the light together. A fierce resolve washed over her to cherish every moment, to embrace every challenge ahead, and always protect her son. Now it was time to move forward and live. Before you go, listen up. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel, so you don't miss out on future exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the word. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling saga. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.